Hi, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and we couldn't be happier to host the 4th annual Insight Jam. I want to thank everyone who's participating this week, as well as our Insight Jam sponsors, DataStax, Monte Carlo, Denodo, HighGear, and Seller Data. I also want to thank our Solutions Review editors and staff for pulling this event together. When we started this in 2019, we wanted to take a moment at the end of the year to celebrate enterprise technology with a social media event offering best practices and predictions. This will be our biggest jam ever, including 16 live-streamed expert panel discussions over 4 days. And we intend to keep the insights flowing in 2023 with the launch of an expert subscription site for any tech professional who wants to publish posts on Solutions Review. Again, thank you all for being here and enjoy the Insight Jam.
Solutions Review presents Insight Jam, a social media celebration of enterprise technology. Hello and welcome back to the fourth and final day of the Insight Jam. I'm Jonathan Paul, the Director of Multimedia and Events here at Solutions Review, and today's focus has been on business intelligence. We've assembled another great lineup of experts to discuss our second topic today, key considerations for evaluating cloud data platforms. Sean, Pranav, Lee, Tomer, Armand, and Ramneek, let me bring them all in right now. A great group from around the country. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Really great to have you here. Before we begin with the introductions proper, however, we were to take a quick look at today's diamond level sponsor, DataStax, with this video from them.
Hello, I'm Chet Kapoor, Chairman and CEO of DataStax. The future is being written in real time, and customers are demanding apps and experiences that meet them at the speed of light. There's a new database for every use case, and some enterprises support way too many technologies. Real-time apps are growing fast, and developers need a strong point of view, not just for the databases, but for the entire stack. The answer is an open data stack that just works. It's opinionated, it's based on open source technologies, and it's designed for developers building real-time experiences that customers love. Let's face it, when you give developers everything they need, the outcome is better apps and experiences that customers keep coming back for again and again. We are really excited to serve real-time applications with an open data stack that just works.
All right, thank you DataStax for sponsoring, and thank you Chet for that message. So we're going to start off the individual introductions now. Sean, you've graciously agreed to moderate, so I'll let you kick things off. 60 seconds or so, a bit about your background, what brings you to this topic, and what you're excited to talk about today.
Well, first of all,
good luck.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. This is one of my favorite topics, data. And data in the cloud is even more exciting to me. So I've been in the industry for a little over 20 years. I'm an author, speaker, written a couple of books on the topics, and a thought leader. And I'm just happy to be here to talk to such an expert panel on how our viewers and listeners today are considering and evaluating cloud data platforms and what they're doing to make those decisions. So once again, excellent to be here, and looking forward to our conversation. Ramneek, do you want to lead off and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ramneek Jetla. I'm with Hitachi Vantara's Digital Insight practice. And over there, I oversee data modernization projects for the North Americas. I've been in this field for over 15 years, and I'm very excited to be joining this panel today.
Fabulous. Lee?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Kang. I am in charge of overall go-to-market strategy at Seller Data. I've been in the data domain for about 15, 20 years. So thanks for having me here.
Excellent. Great. Glad you're here. Armand?
Hello, everybody. Armand Petrosian. I am the co-founder and CEO of Coalesce, the only data transformation tool built for scale.
Fabulous. Good to see you. Tomer?
Hey, I'm founder of Dremio, and Dremio is the easy and open data lakehouse. Prior to this was one of the first employees at one of the Hadoop companies at MapR.
Fabulous. Good to have you. Pranav, how are you today?
Hey, good morning, good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. Pranav Parekh, VP of Field Engineering at DataStax. I've been in the industry for over 25 years. And for the past 2 years at DataStax, Prior to that, spent 4+ years at Google, and then got acquired into Google from a company called Apogee. I'm here at DataStax because I'm really, really passionate about making enterprises successful with the value of technology. I've had the privilege of actually being in the industry, successful experiences in the API, middleware, and cloud domains, but really wanted to participate in the really fast-growing data ecosystem. And as you heard earlier, want to make sure that our customers that we work with have success with the real-time open data platform that we provide to them.
Fantastic. Glad to have all of you. And as everybody's tallied up, quite a few years of experience on the panel around this topic. As I mentioned, key considerations for evaluating cloud data platforms, and we're going to get into those considerations directly, and starting with the second question I want to ask. But you know where I'd really like to start is talking about how companies are using data and the cloud together to be innovative, to break barriers, to be disruptive in their own businesses, to be more competitive, and to do very interesting things with this type of technology. So Pranav, if I could come back to you and have you kind of kick us off on this topic, how do you see innovation happening with your customers, and what are you doing with them to kind of combine data and the cloud?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that, Sean. So let me just start by sharing a few key data points that will make the innovation drivers fairly clear from our perspective here at DataStax. So we see that the overall data market is growing at 3 times in the next 3 years, right? And that's more data is going to be generated in the next 3 years than the previous 30 years. So data is exploding. But more importantly, real-time data is the fastest growing segment as part of that, which is going to grow at 10 times in the next 3 years. And 30% of all the data that's going to be generated will be real time. And so when we think about that, and we talk to customers and enterprises, they're tying real-time data. And 71% of the enterprises that we've talked to, we've done some research, are linking revenue growth to real-time data. And we've also found that whenever enterprises and customers have strategic focus on real time, it increases the revenue impact by 2.3x. So with that background, no matter what enterprises want to do, they have to deal with real-time data. And the primary use cases in terms of innovation that's going to be driving a lot of that growth is customer experiences. Delightful customer experiences, whether they be online, whether they be offline, hybrid, virtual reality, augmented reality, or even in the metaverse as that continues to grow. And the reason for that is because customers have to be attracted, they have to be retained, and they need to be delighted. And enterprises will have to provide those experiences with apps that require instant access to that data at scale in all forms. So customer experiences that are going to be delighting enterprise consumers and customers, where you capture information in real time, provide data and insights in real time, capture time-sensitive information, and built-in intelligence driving real-time decisions. An example of this is Home Depot, right? Is one of our customers, and they were able to deliver the buy online and pick up curbside experience in a matter of days because of their reliance on real-time data when the pandemic hit. It's a perfect example of how innovative customer experiences that we want as consumers are expecting from this, given the social media experiences that we have, enterprises are going to be able to deliver. And so in my opinion and DataStax's opinion, customer experience is going to be a frontier where a lot of real-time data is going to be used to drive innovative things for enterprises. One last comment, and then I'll open it back to you, Sean, is another example. We have a customer that's a weather collection data company, and they're gathering millions and millions of data points across the globe in a very, very short amount of time. And the reason they're able to do that is based upon the open data technology that we have here at DataStax, built upon Cassandra, providing in the cloud as database as a service, and being able to build innovative experiences for consumers that are looking for weather data, other industries that are looking for weather data to make appropriate decisions on how to drive their business. The customer experiences is going to be the key.
I suspect across our panel today, customer experience will be a common topic. So thanks a lot. Lee, where are you at from an innovation standpoint, utilizing data and cloud?
Yeah, we see our customers are, the trend is definitely cloud will speed up innovation, right? Younger startup companies, obviously, they build everything started everything on the cloud. But we're also seeing more of a traditional enterprises start building out digital products, and the cloud can greatly simplify or speed up the process to deliver this new products, right? For example, we have customers have been providing applications and services to their clients for several years, and now they are adding analytical capabilities to their clients, and building that infrastructure and deliver that capability through the cloud greatly simplify their development process, and they can roll out a new service offering in a couple months, and they can start at a very small scale, and knowing that all the services and the supporting functionalities are available in the cloud. So the risk for them is quite low, and they're able to try different solutions. They try the Stellar Data's cloud offering, and knowing that it's a very low initial investment, right? So that enables them to deliver these new services fairly quickly and realize value for their customers.
Thank you. Yeah, we're hitting a lot of the big points, right? Reducing risk, speed to value are certainly components of innovation. Ramneek, where are you sitting with your customers when it comes to being innovative with data in the cloud?
Sure, and I agree with the panelist. I think companies are leveraging a lot of the cloud technologies to shorten that time to insight. Also, they are leveraging the scalability and the agility that cloud provides to ensure that they are well positioned to respond to market disruptions like what we experienced with the pandemic, and to ensure continuity of business. And then one of the major things that I've seen come up a lot recently is, as companies are collecting data, they are looking into ways to monetize that data. So what they are looking over there in a cloud platform is way to share data. One, to monetize it, but just also to collaborate with their external partners. And they're looking to do that in a secure and frictionless way.
I agree. It's also interesting for the first couple of folks that have answered my first question. The pandemic's come up a couple of times, and I'd love it if any of you want to elaborate on that. I believe that when that occurred, it not only disrupted our lives, obviously, but it also disrupted data in a very interesting way. And if you're applying models and analytic and integration to your data across kind of standard ways, that agility that was just mentioned was really important to turn around and keep pace with what was happening due to this large disruptor. So feel free if anybody else wants to comment on that. Tomer, I'll give it to you next if you'd like to comment on this.
Yeah, sure. So a little bit of background, we're in the analytics space. So Dremio is a lakehouse platform, and really it's all about enabling companies to analyze their data in the cloud without having to copy it into a expensive proprietary data warehouse and all the downsides that come with kind of being locked in and being limited. What I see, companies really excited about, especially these days, is kind of building on open data architectures, right? Having the data in open formats that are not unlike the old days of the data warehouses and putting data in Oracle or Teradata, or now things like Redshift, Snowflake, etc. Instead, having the data in kind of open source formats, so that you can use different technologies on it. And then what we see with customers is that allows a variety of different use cases. And so, again, it's all about enabling their customers. For example, one common thing I see is people actually building analytics into their applications. And so you have, TransUnion has an application called Prama that they offer to lenders and banks, and that has kind of analytics built in to the application. It's powered by us. And Software AG has an IoT platform that they sell to telcos and all these industrial companies. And in the past, maybe that was just device connectivity and management, and now these companies want to query the data and see kind of the IoT data, get results based on that. you have a lot of product analytics use cases, right? Companies, like Microsoft, for example, using Dremio to analyze their own usage data. So how are people interacting with product on Azure, things of that nature. And of course, there's tons of use cases of analytics just within the enterprise, right? So, you hear a lot about data mesh now, which is all about how enterprises can scale kind of their internal analytics. And so that applies to every industry, right? We have, customers as far as like JP Morgan Chase doing that in financial services, and, an Italian energy company called Enel that's, building data meshes. So, super exciting just how broad data analytics is in the cloud now. Spans every industry, every size of company, and yeah, it's fun to get a front seat to see all these different use cases and what companies are doing with data.
Yeah, the use case side of this conversation for innovation is we could spend an hour just talking about that aspect of it, because every industry sees value in data and doing new and exciting things with it. And it doesn't surprise me that cloud is part of their strategy. Armon, you're last in on the topic. What haven't we covered here from an innovation sort of standpoint with data cloud platforms?
Yeah, so the cloud is amazing because it gave access of data to people who typically and historically haven't had that access. So what we're seeing as we talk to so many different companies, hundreds in just the past few months, is that the issue isn't necessarily the velocity at which people are ingesting data. So whether it's in real-time format or whether the platform is open enough and expansive enough to support every single use case, the issue is being able to actually prepare that data in a way it's persisted with proper governance, with proper data lineage and documentation in a timely manner, so it can then be visualized or there could be insight driven out of that data. And what we've seen with the cloud platforms is a lot of success when they've taken the mindset of how do we automate as much of the redundancy and painful aspects of data platforms at scale. So we saw that with Snowflake, the way that they automated database tuning, they separated compute from storage, they made it brain-numbingly easy to spin up an incredibly powerful, scalable platform. And you've seen that same philosophy be applied to pretty much every other segment of the analytics stack. So you saw on the front end with BI tools like Tableau, you've seen it now happen with the extraction and load tools like Fivetran. Really the gap in the analytics workflow right now is what we call data transformations, which is taking raw data after it's been landed in your platform, whatever platform it may be, and getting it to the point that it's actually consumable and has been properly transformed with governance and lineage associated with it. That's where most organizations spend the vast majority of their time trying to be data-driven. The platforms themselves are insanely powerful at this point. The issue at hand is how do we actually get that data in a format that's consumable and get it to the users and the consumers of data in a timely manner. And that's why we're so passionate about the mission here at Coalesce. We're all about automating transformations at scale. Whether you're a Fortune 500 company like a Medtronic or a Total Energies, or you're a small business in the e-commerce space or somewhere in between, that's the biggest gap today in the cloud platform space.
Well, and what you're talking about a little bit around it is foundational items, right? Can you build a platform and a foundation that's strong enough to get the work done? And so much of it goes back to, do I have access to the information and data I want? Can I get to it easily? Is it nurtured, and is it clean, and is that the right data, and so on? So all of these topics are really important around innovation. Does anybody else have a final comment on this topic before I move on?
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to add, and sort of aligns with what Tomer mentioned around an open data stack, right? That is our tagline, but at the same time, an ecosystem plays a big role in ensuring that our customers get the best value out of the investments that they're making. And so it's super important for all of us as vendors to think about how can we provide a platform in the cloud, right? Not only should it be scalable, obviously secure, and so on and so forth, but also something that's equally open so that other things can be plugged in to provide the different use cases, whether it be in the IoT use case, like we have several customers doing that, for example, FedEx in logistics, collect millions and millions of data points for all the packages that are going across their system. But then they need to actually take that information and provide that downstream in other places. And so we provide streaming capabilities with Pulsar in the platform, again, to make sure that it's an open stack, not necessarily a closed platform, so that other technologies, whether it be Dremio or others, can be plugged in for downstream analysis that needs to be done for their innovative use cases, whether they be in AI and ML or other means.
I agree. Open is important, and you said powerful, Sean. But I think easy is critical when you think about those two things, because in historically, the more powerful and the more open things were, the harder they were. Also, you had more moving parts. You had to integrate them, right? And it was a pain. And we all know that, look back in time and how software development happened. It used to be that people build monolithic apps. They took PHP on MySQL or ASP.NET on SQL Server. That was the easiest way to build an app. And then there were microservices, obviously more powerful, more open. But it wasn't until that started to become easy, with a whole tool set around that, right? Kubernetes and, all the version control and all those things, that you could actually do it. And so, I mean, even in our world, right, data lakes notoriously were difficult to use. And a lot of people still think about it that way. And I'd say only in the last 2 years has that really changed, with the rise of things like, Apache Iceberg, and thinking of things as tables and not files. And, platforms like, lakehouses like Dremio, making it easy to ingest the data into these formats, and optimizing the tables automatically so people don't have to do it by hand. So the more open and the more powerful can also be way harder. And so that's on us. I think everybody here, to really make these platforms super easy, right? That's really important.
The open aspect of our conversation is popping around: OpenStack, open data, open source technology, and it's on my list of things I want to dive into. So let's move in that direction. So and anybody can answer my next question, and we can kind of go around the tree a little bit, but take off the business value hats a little bit, put on your nerd hats. I know all 5 of you are nerds, and I mean that with love and caring. Technically, our customers are coming to folks like you to innovate on the cloud, but they've got technical considerations. And I want to hear from you what you're hearing from customers and what you think is important for them to be thinking about. Is it cost, overall cost? Is it speed to value, as we've discussed? Is it cost management and transparency? Is it the type of cloud? Is that prevalent in what kind of decision they're making when they look at the solution that you bring and how you're leveraging the cloud with that? So, technically, what kind of considerations are your customers putting at the top of their list, or should they be putting at the top of their list? Who wants to dive in?
Yeah, I can start off.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
One of the things when customers are evaluating products, I think they look at is it going to integrate with their current technical landscape? I think that is very important, especially with data platforms. Is it going to integrate with the reporting tools or the workflow management and orchestration tools that they have? Other than that, like the panelists already said, if they can avoid paying a licensing fee, they want to do that. And there are a lot of good open source options available today in the market with healthy input from developers. So that's another direction in which they're moving.
Who else
I
has
would
input
say
on
what
this?
Tomer was talking about earlier about ease of use. That's such a critical aspect when people are considering their platforms in the first place, is how easy is it to spin it up, use it, especially at scale, managing a large scale implementation, whether it's tuning or automating certain components of the database. The simplicity and ease of use is so key when it comes to database platforms, especially in the cloud.
There's so much to be talked about on this topic, Sean. But again, we can go on for hours talking about the technical things. But as I engage with customers and DataStax engages with customers, we see 5 technical things that consistently come up. And I'll list them. These are not necessarily any specific order, but first one is enterprise readiness. And I think what Ramnik and others mentioned around it being something that can be integrated easily. But more importantly, given that we're in the cloud, customers are starting to create multi-cloud architectures, multi-region architectures. They're making sure that they have the appropriate security, governance, and trust built in as they're looking to move things into the cloud, especially their data. Right. So enterprise readiness is one. The next one, several of the folks have touched on it, which is scale, performance, and reliability. Right? Customers are moving to the cloud because they're anticipating scaling things. And with the growth in real-time data that I mentioned before, there's going to be customers want world-class experiences when it comes to volumes in hundreds and thousands of transactions per second, which we are able to support in Astra DB, which is our database as a service that's available with sub-millisecond latencies and 99.99% availability, right? So scale, performance, reliability is the second part. You mentioned cost earlier. And so when we talk to customers, they're really looking at cloud unit economics. So it's not just about cost reduction and cost management, but it's also about, they're asking, what does your architecture look like? And we have a true cloud native architecture. Somebody mentioned earlier around serverless computing. That's what we offer, right? We have separated out storage from compute when it comes to data at scale in real time. That results in zero operations for the operators on the customer side and delivers the best unit economics. And I'll quickly touch on two other ones, and then I'll open it back up to you, Sean. The next one was developer productivity and time to value. Making it easy, Tomer mentioned that, and Arman mentioned that as well. The ability for developers to become super productive as quickly as possible so that the enterprises can get the value out of the technology as quickly as possible. So providing freedom of choice with the different sets of APIs, whether it be RESTful APIs, document APIs, GraphQL APIs, even native drivers for different languages like Java, Python, C++, Sharp, Node.js. These are type of things that customers are asking us. We want to be able to integrate easily with your platform. And last but not least, open and extensible. We touched on that before, so I won't belabor the point, but they want things to be based upon open source technologies so they can leverage the community innovations and the ability to provide connectivity to the ecosystem technologies that are out there.
I think that we talk here about scalability a few times. I think scalability has become table stakes, though, right? It's for us, sure, 5 of the Fortune 10 use Dremio, and we can scale to petabytes, but so can our competitors, right? And so the question then becomes, okay, what does it cost you to get to that scale, and how hard is it, right? Can you can get to scaling to petabytes of data, in a curve that's pretty flat, and you're going to end up like some of our some of the cloud data warehouses out there, where you're going to spend $10 million to get to that scale, or you can do that for $1 million, right, or less, right? So I think the cost at which you can scale is super critical. And then even more important maybe is the people aspect of all of this, right? Because that's where most of the costs end up being, right? It's, if I have to wait on somebody to, create derived tables for me and create extracts and do all this copying of data before I can, as an analyst, for example, actually get access to the data that I need, or, the dashboard that I need, that's where the tremendous costs are, right? And on top of that, I'm waiting days to actually get there. And so the more that you can enable self-service, I think that really is actually more critical than any of the kind of the technical details of the product itself, right? Because that changes the game. Who can access data? What can they do with data? Are they actually going to use data, right? If it's not self-service, people aren't going to do that. So for us, that like solving self-service, solving the copying of data, of course, while maintaining all the governance and compliance and fine-grained security and all those things are also table stakes, right? You can't these days do business unless you're going to allow the customer to really govern and control the data. But beyond that, you have to really enable the business.
That's why I mentioned cloud unit economics, Tomer, right? And like to your point, we're able to deliver 6 times the scalability at 50% the cost in many cases compared to other vendors. To your point, that is super important, and that's why cloud unit economics become an important and critical part of the decision-making process beyond the technical capabilities.
One of the things that I've found super interesting when people compare databases to each other, and I agree with you, Tomer, an element of this is table stakes, but people forget about the overall TCO of a project. So they look at a database, they compare 2 databases to each other, and they look at the compute cost or something related or associated to the database itself, and forget about the actual cost of all the people that are required to manage this database at scale, or work on it effectively, or the skill set required, or the languages of code that it's needed in order to make it work properly. And we saw this time and time again. I think the best example was Hadoop during their stage, and the big data craze, and how it was this very flexible, elastic platform, but was very expensive to manage it just based on the amount of resources and the degree of skill set required from those resources to make a project like that successful. And so I'd be very curious to hear the panel's here's perspective on this. Are we getting too distracted from the per unit cost Do we forget? Do you all see people forgetting about the cost of labor and resources associated with managing these projects at scale?
No, I think you're right. It's critical, right? And I think that's having worked in the early days of the Hadoop stuff, right, and seeing kind of all the problems that came out of that and the complexity that came out of that, and really, the reason I started Dremio actually back in 2015 was because public cloud was becoming a real thing, and that introduced a whole new opportunity to solve that same problem in a much different way, right? Kind of clean slate. Let's make this so much easier, right? Because Hadoop, you're right, it was a nightmare, right? And so I think those early data lakes, that was a problem. So right now, first of all, I think SQL's kind of become the language of choice again. Went through a period where it was this thing that that's kind of old school and nobody wants SQL, to now SQL is the hot thing. Everybody wants to do as much as they can in SQL, right? And so fortunately for us, we bet on SQL early on here, and that's been successful. But the total cost of ownership, administering the system, also from a usage standpoint, like what does it take to if you have to start ingesting data all day long, a lot of times just getting the data in and preparing it can be a huge part of the cost, right? So if you can eliminate a lot of that and not need to ingest the data, in our world, what that means is, when you look at cloud data warehouses, people always put the data first in object storage and then put in a cloud data warehouse, right? That's kind of an extra step, an extra ingestion, a lot of cost associated with that. So enabling them to query the data and analyze it, and now also, do record level inserts, updates, deletes, do everything they could do with the warehouse directly on the object storage, so they don't have to create that additional copy and more data ingestion and all that. That's a big cost reduction from an overall TCO standpoint.
Yeah, another aspect we've seen is the associate, in addition to the cost, right, or associated with the cost is the user experience. Pranav mentioned that the end user's experience, right? But for us software vendors, our direct users, whether it's the data infrastructure guys or the business analysts, right, their user experience. And that means query response, and also from the data infrastructure team's standpoint, right? What is the effort to maintain a smooth experience, a smooth infrastructure, and to provide great services to their customers? For example, Pranav mentioned the real-time analytics and real-time usage is becoming more and more popular. Definitely, that's the direction. And to provide this real-time analytics, we're seeing right now there's still a fragmented, the infrastructure, right, on the marketplace. So we have customers came to us saying, hey, I have been maintaining two separate data pipelines. One is for my batch-based analytics use cases. Another one is for my real-time use cases. How can I simplify this data pipeline? So from the data infrastructure team standpoint, right, better experience, provide a consolidated, unified one platform to their users, which are business analysts or data scientists, right? And on the other hand, from the analysts or data scientist standpoint, improve their user experience, right? They don't need to know about the multiple query endpoints, right? They know there's one single data platform, whether it's a data lake or data warehouse, that they can query against. Or ideally, right, it's like Tomer mentioned, right, open standard, one platform that, and then I can, just query the data, run my analytics, and whether it's real-time use cases or batch use cases, and users don't have to worry about that kind of provide a great user experience to our direct users at a reasonable cost, right? That's what a lot of vendors are working towards.
You guys are getting really close to my next question, so I'm going to toss it out there to keep us moving forward. Which, we started with innovation. How are your customers innovating? What are the technical things they're demanding? And that's kind of the topic we've been on. But I've heard some great words in the last couple minutes. There's this idea of self-service, and you're all starting to talk about different personas internally, and that kind of brings me to that sort of culture question of utilizing solutions that are leveraging cloud cloud infrastructure to bring value to a company. Are you seeing that as part of the consideration from your buyers? Are they ready? Do they have the right IT assets lined up? Do their data scientists want to use solutions that are cloud-based? What about the data engineers, the data analysts, and all of the rest of the very diverse group of people that want to get value from data? And I want to know where you see kind of a culture of cloud. Is it being greatly affected because of the pandemic, because of a lot of remote work, smaller teams, reduced IT? What comes to mind on this topic for you guys?
Yeah.
I see. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead. Sorry, Lee. So culture is a super important aspect, right, for any organization. But we are seeing a spectrum, Sean, like I'm pretty sure everybody else. People who are really forward-leaning and adopting the cloud because they understand the cloud-native technologies is what's going to get them there. But then there are also laggards too that they're very conservative, and perhaps rightly so, given the industry that they're in. But more and more culturally, organizations need to realize, right, not everybody is there, that the real-time data growth that's exponentially happening, it's not just a fad, right? This is something that's going to continue to carry on. And the reliance on old technologies, old architectures, old programming paradigms are not necessarily going to serve the modern business that they're in today, right? And so what's gotten them there is not going to get them there in the future. People mentioned before, right? The panelists mentioned before around self-service. I mentioned that in a different vein when I talk about zero operations, which is how do developers, how do operators really think about going into the cloud and taking advantage of all of those things, culturally speaking, by thinking, how do I automate and not necessarily have to worry about the operational aspect of it and deliver value quickly? So they have to learn to break the shackles. For example, it's counterintuitive in many cases today, saying putting data in the cloud is more secure and more reliable than keeping it on premises, right? It's a little bit counterintuitive. And you have to work with organizations culturally to say why that's the case, because you actually benefit from the security, the governance, the innovation that's happening in the cloud as a provider from many organizations that are helping us do it very, very quickly. So, and then the other thing is operations teams also need to consider migrating and up-leveling their own skills to say it's not about racking and stacking, it's not about installing, it's not about provisioning things, but it's really about automation. It's about reliability engineering. It's about production engineering. And again, to other panelists' points of view, it's not about spending time in doing operations. It's really providing the self-service and making sure that you're up-leveling the skills appropriately to take advantage of those things.
I'm not sure about the more secure in the cloud. Like, I'm not sure what the evidence is for that. Sure, it can be secure. You can configure things securely, but plenty of breaches in the cloud happening, right? I think it's actually, in many ways, it's easier to shoot yourself in the leg when it's in the cloud, and I think very few security breaches happen because somebody breaks into your data center or that kind of thing. So the physical security, I don't think is a big factor in security these days. So yeah, I wouldn't say the cloud is more secure. I think it can be just as secure. I think when I see enterprises kind of moving to the cloud, they're making sure that they're doing it in a secure and effective way, and then it's secure. But I don't think inherently the cloud is.
It's more about the collective wisdom, Tomer, right? I mean, you get the wisdom from all the organizations. For example, if you've used Google as a cloud platform, you have many things that are happening in the platform itself from all these different customers, whether it's pen testing across the board or security breaches that might be happening with one customer, providing with some root cause analysis that's going to be able to help other customers in the cloud as well.
Yeah,
right?
but then you put up an unpatched MySQL database, and it's just as vulnerable in the cloud. Like I don't know. I'm sure you can trust the Google platform, the Amazon platform, the Microsoft. That piece is fine, but then all the stuff that you're doing in there, and leaving ports open and leaving your S3 bucket exposed, and there's 100 things you can do wrong.
I think that
gets you in trouble just as much in the cloud as on premise. So, yeah, there's a piece I would argue that probably the physical systems are more secure. There's armed guards in the entrance to the data center, but
I think this conversation just validated Pranav's first point is the wide spectrum when it comes to cloud technology, right? Like I mentioned, like we worked with startups, they just picked a cloud platform, right, without second thoughts. And then within the traditional enterprises, you have a new product group, almost operating like a startup within the company, and they are all about getting on the cloud and leveraging the cloud services. And then you also have the operating teams are very concerned about securities and the governances. Almost just like the conversation we are having here, right? Debating about whether it's secure or not, and then very cautious about moving data around, even preparing for the POC even, right? So definitely from a cultural standpoint, there's a wide spectrum, and I think it's rightfully so, right? They need to be very careful.
I'll weigh in on this as well. I've been an educator in the space for years, and in the early days when we were looking at putting data and analytics in the cloud, my classrooms used to ask me, well, prove to me that it's safe. And I think that we can all agree it's proven to be safe, and I'll use quotes there. I would also say that culturally back then, there were companies that had no, you cannot put corporate data somewhere else rules. That's pretty much gone by the wayside. So I do think the traction, the maturity, and the execution in general with cloud platforms, especially around data, have proven themselves enough to be as safe as the data center, as Tomer said, and sometimes it can be quite safer to your, I have been in a data center where there were people, armed guards. And so what you don't normally see in an enterprise data center. So, go back to the diversity, guys, of users, all these different personas that are kind of crashing down on how we're trying to get work done. How are you all seeing that from a cultural standpoint? What do you think about this democratization of access and different people trying to drag and pull value from how they're interacting with data, especially in cloud platforms?
I think that's where the cloud shines, is the fact that it can you can address the needs of all these different users, right? In the world, our world of analytics, right? You have data scientists and analysts that are trying to consume data. We just call them data consumers. You have the people that are managing the platform. You have the people that are responsible for transforming the data, and all of them get benefits from being in the cloud and the the scalability and the ease of use that we can provide with a cloud platform, right? So in the past, maybe if you were, or no, I shouldn't say in the past, but if you're on premise and you're an analyst and you're trying to query data from an overloaded system, well, that's going to be really frustrating because you're going to wait, 5 minutes to query, a megabyte of data, or hours, or maybe you'll be told you can't even use that system, right? Whereas in the cloud, we can provide, for example, with our platform with Dremio Cloud, and working with which works with things like S3 and the infinite compute that Amazon provides, or same thing with Azure. They can have unlimited compute capacity, and when they query something, they're going to get an answer no matter what, right? And then it's just a question of how much does the company want to spend, as opposed to, did they order servers, 6 months in advance, or that kind of thing. So the experience to all these users, it's just so much better, and we can do it in a way that minimizes their cost, because when they're not running a query, they're not paying anything. And that's not the case, in an on-prem world, right? You're paying for kind of peak capacity in some ways, right? You have to have this thing provisioned 24/7, and so I think for the end user, super valuable in the cloud. They also have a much broader choice of tools they can use. There's all sorts of cloud services that are available that they didn't have on-prem. These systems are easier to manage, so that's a benefit for the administration and the folks that need to manage all this. So yeah, I think it's beneficial across the board for everyone.
I feel like it's been a bit of a double-edged sword at the same time, though. So we've seen cloud platforms evolve at a rate that's disproportionate to tooling in the space, and so there's been so much growth in the sophistication of cloud data platforms, and companies, particularly startups, had access to data in a way that they never had before. And so many different types of data practitioners had this insane level of access to very scalable platforms, but unfortunately had minimal understanding around proper data architecture and how to build an elegant data warehouse or a data vault, whatever it may be that they're aiming for. And so I was on a panel yesterday with a organization and one of their lead data engineering managers, data science managers, and he was just talking through their journey about how, at the beginning stages, there's really minimal incentive to do proper data modeling and think about the foundational layer that you're going to go out and build on these platforms. And so when you've got these really scalable platforms that make it easy to use, and they have so much potential. They give you so much access. The next question is, how do we actually go about building today so that way we don't shoot ourselves in the foot a year from now or 2 years from now as we hit hypergrowth? And so we're seeing a lot of organizations right now that went through that journey and found that all the access that the cloud platform gave them also came with a lot of responsibility, and that there was a lot of road bumps, and now having to refactor and re-architect a lot of the code and a lot of the objects that they've built to support a much more in a much more resilient fashion. And so I love what the cloud has done. It also has caused a lot of pain for people who didn't have proper data warehousing best practices in mind. And that's something that we're seeing time and time again as the industry evolves. So,
yeah, I think that's also related to what's the end user's perspective, right? The end user's experience. End user means like Tomer mentioned, the data consumers, right?
Right.
In the enterprise, maybe before the cloud days, right? Running on-prem, they have data warehouse, data mart, and you have data filtered down, and then you run the query on the BI tool against a data mart. You get super fast response time. Then a lot of data consumers didn't realize what's happening behind the scene and what's the limit of that technology. When they first moved to the cloud, they found that suddenly those queries take 10 seconds, 15 seconds, which is not as responsive as they're used to, right? And that's kind of a really bad user experience for companies first move to the cloud. It's almost like back in the days when people first migrating from a mainframe-based application to a J2EE-based application, right? From the green terminals, everything you can click on keyboard super fast, and then you move to the browser-based application, it becomes much slower. That's kind of but actually what end users don't realize from the architecture standpoint, the great the benefits of this new technology brings, right? So it's up to us, the analytics, all these software vendors, to improve on the query experiences, data ingestion experiences, to make sure the end users, from their standpoint, they don't see the cloud migration as a bad experience, right? So that's critical. And how do we get there? Obviously, go ahead.
No, one more thing, Sean, you mentioned is the proliferation of these different personas, right? And to me, that's great. I mean, bring more on, right? When it comes to data, we want more people to actually think about the value of data. And what that's driving really from an industry standpoint, whether it's at all companies, is innovation, right? The more type of different personas that we have to work with, the more innovation it's driving in capabilities. An example of this I mentioned before is we have many different developers that are consuming our platform, Apache Cassandra in the cloud, Apache Pulsar in the cloud, but they want it in many different ways. So innovatively, we created something called Stargate, which is an API layer on top of Apache Cassandra in the cloud. And we're offering that to developers to use it. So again, to me, it's all about, yes, bring more people, more personas on board. But again, what's that benefiting the vendors? It's actually driving innovation.
Guys, let me take you back. Early on, I mentioned, and we just heard Cassandra mentioned open source, right? Open platforms. We've talked about open data, open stacks, open source technology, access to that. 30 seconds from each of you, if I could, as we're closing in on the end of our hour. How is this playing a role for your customers when they're looking to make decisions? And Armon, can I have you kick it off and have you talk to this open source topic real quick?
Yeah, the topic of open source definitely is trending, and you're seeing it be discussed widely at this point. It's interesting to me. I think that there's a lot of great aspects to having an open platform, but you've also seen that most companies historically that have been successful are usually a best-of-breed technology or proprietary product that has some type of architectural advantage. What my personal opinion is that the best case scenario is you have some proprietary advantage architecturally as a product, but you also open up the platform for people to contribute and collaborate amongst each other and really get the best of both worlds versus going all in on an open source concept that typically ends up costing the business a lot more from resource count, head count, consulting, or highly skilled consultants, or then basically navigating the user from that open source platform to the paid product of the parent company that manages the open source project. And so really it's take the best aspects of an open platform, but also tie it together with some type of architectural advantage that you can provide to customers to bring them value.
I don't think people care if the platform is open as much as they care that their data is open, right? And I think that's a big difference, right? It's one thing, whether some SaaS application, like Dremio Cloud is open source or not open source. It's a different thing to say I'm going to have to put my data, load it into a proprietary system where I'm going to be locked in and I'll never be able to get off and use other systems, right? And so if you can keep the data in open formats like Apache Iceberg, it's created by Netflix and Apple, and I think is really getting a lot of community kind of consensus around it from ourselves and Snowflake and Amazon and others, right? If you can put in that kind of format and Parquet files and use Zero, then it's very easy for you tomorrow to use something else, right? If you don't like this technology, use some other technology, but you own the data, it's in open formats, and you're never going to be hostage to somebody else.
I agree with Tom.
But open source. Go ahead, Ramnik.
What is that?
Thanks. I said I would second that. People are looking to keep their data in an open format because invariably technology will change. And what customers are thinking is, if tomorrow there's a new technology that comes in and now I want to leverage that, what is it going to cost me to get the data out of the systems that I have it in? What kind of egress fees am I going to have to pay to avoid that and to have maximum flexibility to pivot to new technologies? I would agree. Customers are looking at open source table formats and file formats.
Yeah, our customers have been, very supportive, for us staying in the open source. We keep all the core functionalities, right, including all the performance improvements, all in open source. And we have customers, our customers have been working on different database engines, data platforms, right? And they looked at our source code, evaluated the product, and they've been very impressive and gave us the thumbs up. I think from the vendor standpoint, right, we benefit from the open source community, right? We work closely with Iceberg, Hudi projects, and we also work very closely with open source BI products like Superset, right? So being part of this bigger open source ecosystem is our commitment to our customers, and also gives customers the confidence to believe in our products and give them an easy way to get started to try our products. So,
and no disagreements here, right? Open data format, totally agree. That's something that customers are looking for. But also from an open source perspective, this is coming up as a consideration for all customers that we speak to, because they want optionality to be able to move, whether they're in the cloud or on premises, and they want to be able to leverage open source technologies in an as a service manner, like we have done with Astra DB for open source Cassandra and Astra Streaming for open source Pulsar. But the community engagement and support is super, super important to customers because of the lack of skills that they have in-house, and the ability to engage with customer community is super important. And earlier, as I mentioned, innovations, the ability to tap innovations faster. And that's at the core of what DataStax does. We want to actually innovate in the open so that others in the industry as well as customers can benefit from it.
Excellent discussion, gentlemen. Thank you all for your time and expertise. It has been a riveting chat, I think. As we wrap up our hour, though, I'd like to invite each of you to give us some self-promotion, 30 seconds or so, if you want to plug your website, your solution, personal media, personal social media, whatever you'd like. And since Sean, you moderated, we'll let you go last. So Ramnik, let's start with you.
Sure. We at Hitachi Vantara, and specifically within the digital insights practice, have been helping clients migrate their workloads from on-prem to the cloud. So if you're looking for that, definitely reach out to us. You can reach me out at LinkedIn. But also we have a host of solutions that can help you optimize your cloud platforms and help contain some of those costs associated with the cloud.
Excellent. Thank you. Lee.
I come from Stellar Data. Stellar Data is founded by the creators of the StarRocks project, and we are a unified data analytics platform that provide both real-time analytics as well as batch-based analytics. Great performance, low total cost of ownership. And if you want to learn more about Stellar Data or StarRocks project, visit us at stellardata.com or connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you. Armin.
Yeah, excellent. Really enjoyed this panel today. What we're passionate about solving is the biggest problem right now in the analytics workflow, which is actually taking data from its raw format when it's landed in a platform, in our case, exclusively Snowflake, and getting it to the point where it's actually consumable with proper documentation and data lineage. And Coalesce is an automation tool for doing exactly that. We want to accelerate users' experience to get that raw data to the point it's consumable as efficiently as possible and at scale. If you're interested in giving the product a spin, check us out at coalesce.io. Thanks.
Thank you. Tomer.
Yeah, I won't promote Dremio, but I do think you're all here to learn and to learn about data in the cloud. So there's a conference that we host every year. It's coming up in February in early March called Subsurface Live, and expecting over 15,000 people and lots of talks from folks from Apple, Uber, lots of open source creators as well. So yeah, feel free to come to that. It's free. So looking forward to seeing everyone there.
Awesome. Thank you. Pranav.
Yeah, so 90% of Fortune 500 companies are benefiting from up to 6 times performance at 50% of the cost of other cloud offerings. And so if that's what you want as an organization, recommend going to astra.datastacks.com and giving it a try.
Thank you. Sean, last but not least.
As mentioned up front, I'm working independently these days, and the easiest place to find me is on LinkedIn, where I'm publishing a lot of content on how critical thought leadership information and content as a go-to-market approach can help drive software companies forward. So if you have questions about it, you'll find content from me there, and please connect with me.
Thank you very much, one and all. It has been a great topic. If you're watching live, please stick around. We'll be right back with our next group of business intelligence experts as they discuss data mesh, data fabric, and emerging data management approaches. For Solutions Review, my name is Jonathan Paula. Thank you again to our great group of panelists today. We hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.